What's up, my good people? So I've been asked a couple times since regionals how things went on Table Rock, and I didn't have very much footage from day one. And if I did, I probably would have deleted it or wanted to delete it anyway. Day one was a beast, man. It was bluebird skies. Let me preface that Table Rock has been a beast. I went up there and practiced the weekend before. Man, it was a beast then, and it was a beast throughout the tournament. It was just a tough lake, very tough lake to fish. The time that we were there, as you all know, somebody's gonna always catch them, and that's just the thing about it, man. No matter what, I don't care what's going on. You can be having the worst time you've ever had on a lake. When it comes tournament time, somebody's gonna win. Period. Somebody's gonna catch a bag. Somebody's gonna find them. Somebody's gonna get on them. So in practice, I ran up to Hunts Creek, which is headed up the river. So arm headed up that way, and I found a lot of bait in there, man. And my goal was to, make a pretty decent run from the state park, and just kind of get away from some of the field, man. Get away from some of the crowd. Go to some less pressured fish, and see if we can both get 5 in a boat. And I really couldn't get on any kind of pattern during my practice. And one thing that kind of drove me to making that run that first day was the amount of bait and fish that I did see in the back of a creek up that way. And I knew at some point during the day they had to fire up. But the problem was going to be the competition. The sheer amount of bait in that creek was what we were going to have to compete with. And we were going to have to throw things that stood out, did something different, something to get those fish attention so that they would eat our baits versus the shad that was in that creek. And we went up there, man. We made that run, pretty long run that morning, and it was terrible, man. We both ended up catching several fish that day, but if you're familiar with Table Rock, you know that there's a 15-inch slot on Table Rock. So the 15-inch slot killed us, as you might say. I don't know, but we caught a lot of 13 and a halfers, 14 inches, 14 and a half, 14 and 3/4. Man, we caught some fish that were right on the line that just didn't make it. So day one, I don't have very much footage from. I got some footage, but I'm not going to post it. I am going to post a little bit of footage from day two. I went a completely different direction. I went south instead of going north, and went into Arkansas side of Table Rock. And we actually caught some fish that day as well. I caught 3 keepers, and I'll kind of start narrating some of this video and try to condense it down as best I can from here. So what happened right here, we had just pulled in. This was our first creek south of State Park, like way south. Like, we made a good run. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as long of a run as day one, but I'll put it like this. There was 100 and I don't know how many boats that left out that morning, and we were towards the way back of the pack because we were boat 11 day one. And from the time that Allen started releasing boats to go to the time that we left, there was probably 2 boats that went south. That concerned me a little bit in the aspect of, are they saying everything's really biting up the way we tried to go yesterday, or do they just not know? Because what I did was I went south after day one that evening. I went down there to this creek, and I caught 2 like back to back. Either it was an evening bite or whatever it may have been, but I caught them back to back on a jerk bait. So I knew there was fish in that area. So that's the only thing I was confident in, and that's the way we went. All right, what you just saw was I had to slow down. I caught that fish on that jerk bait. Well, I hooked up with the fish and came off at the boat. But this fish I actually caught on the shaky head, and I had to slow down and focus on structure in the back of this creek. There was not very much bait where I caught that fish at, but in between that fish where he was sitting and back up where I hung that fish on that jerk bait, it was just piles and piles of bait in this creek. One thing I did that didn't really dawn on me was the spot where I hooked that fish on that jerk bait earlier was the same spot that I caught those two fish in practice after day one of the tournament. And it didn't dawn on me that these fish were there. They were holding in that spot. That's the area I needed to focus on, and just it was a timing deal. It still hadn't dawned on me. So I went through there and hooked that fish and kept going. And then I went on down the bank and caught this fish. This was my first keeper on a shaky head. So just kept fishing. So I saw this fish on my live scope, and I couldn't tell how big he was. I thought he was bigger than what it was. Of course, he wasn't a keeper. Just one of the few of the day that were under 15 inches. But I thought it was pretty cool. You know, it's one of those usual spots, man, when you see standing timber or a tree sticking out of the water by itself or something like that. Man, we all know fish holes to that stuff. So definitely the wrong species, but I was expecting it got, first of all, the temperature. There was an extreme temperature drop this morning. You know, when we left, it was 60s, you know, and by this time it was around 48 or so. But the wind had picked up, so of course I had to pull out that spinner bait, man. And that was what's happened. That was the first fish I caught. We went way back to some other creek, and I mean, it was shad everywhere again. So I knew the bass were around, and there was another boat kind of in the area. You'll see them in a bit, and catching catfish. So once again, another one that wasn't a keeper, but again on a spinnerbait, and windy, shad everywhere. I just don't get it at this point. We're just still trying to put the pieces together of this puzzle, but we're roaming as flat. It's a flat out here where we're roaming, and we finally run into another keeper, and here it is. So I did catch one more fish after that one. I had a three fish bag that day. I didn't get it on recording. We went back into the creek that we went into first time. Same spot where I caught that, or I hung that fish early on the jerk bait. Same spot where I caught that fish on the shaky head. And I caught my biggest fish of the day in that pocket, in that timber again. And at that point, it took all that for it to dawn on me and be like, duh, you dummy. I mean, you should have been there the whole time, you know. But it is what it is. So I went back in there, caught another fish. We had like 20 minutes to run back to the weigh-in before, you know, we caught any penalties or anything like that. But rolled into the weigh-in. So we got in, you know, we got the fish weighed. I had like 6 and some change, but you know, learned a lot. If I ever go back to Table Rock, I know some things to do and some things to look for, even though it'll probably be different, you know, circumstances. But all in all, man, it was a great experience. I was glad to be able to, I'm thankful to be able to go to regional. It's my second year going and making it and qualifying for the regional championship. First year as a co-angler. This year, my first year as a boater. I made the regional. So I'm pretty stoked about that, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to go. So it was, we had to pay for our lodging, we had to pay for everything else, but it was a no entry tournament. So you can't beat that. You fish all season long, and you get invited to go fish without having to pay for it, other than a place to stay and a place, gas and stuff for your boat and truck. So I didn't mind doing that. So thankful all in all. Finished up the 2020 season, and I feel pretty good about it, man. I'm real optimistic about 2021. Ready to get the season started. Doing a lot of work, doing a lot of practice. So keep up, man. Keep up with me. And if you're interested in getting out on one of the lakes, let me know. Be glad to take you out there. As I learn, you learn. So just trying to put it all together, man. And looking forward to 2021, and appreciate y'all tuning in.